Well, if you take a big whiff of the air, you can just start to smell the gasoline, the Sunoco fuel, the burnt rubber. The season is upon us. We are just inching closer and closer to the Great American Race because the Daytona 500 is on Sunday. And I'm Alex Weaver, joined by this motley crew that I am so proud to call my favorite crew chief, one of my favorite drivers. We're gonna get things going here on NASCAR Inside the Race for the 2026 season. I'm joined by Steve Letarte and Kyle Petty. I wouldn't even do this season without the two of these folks right here because we're gonna break down everything for you guys on Inside the Race this season. We already spoke about the clash that we saw that announcement a few weeks back in January, but now we're going to really dive into this season and we're going to kick things off with the Daytona 500. So, Steve, KP, how we doing?
Oh, there's nothing better. There's nothing better. Nothing better than the high banks of Daytona. The people in the Northeast that are stuck in the cold can tune in and see some palm trees, see some blue skies. KP, I don't know about you, but for me, the offseason always took that long. And even like the duels and everything were fine. But there was a moment for me, and it was the flyover. I know that sounds weird, but you get ready to do the 500. The crowd will be there, and those Jets will do the flyover for the anthem. And then they will turn and they will come at the grandstands and give us that big rip. And at that moment, I remember going, holy crap. Like, here we go. Like, everything we practiced is now going to be tested. I can't. That's my pinch me moment of the year.
Here we go is exactly right. But my moment always, from the time I was a kid and went there and watched my dad, was rolling up out of that tunnel down there in turns 3 and 4. And there it is.
Yep.
Daytona, the place you want to win, the place you want to be, the place you want to go in February. The Daytona 500 is coming. And that was the moment for me.
Yeah, when you're lucky enough to land right next to the racetrack, which is one of the biggest racetracks that we see all year long, it's a pretty cool sight to land that plane down at Daytona Beach International Airport. So excited to get down there. Inside the Race, we'll be heading down there. But we also, on this episode, as we're going to preview the Daytona 500, we're going to talk a little bit of the high storylines of this season. We're also going to be joined by the two-time now champ. This is a new title for him after his 2025 campaign. Kyle Larson is going to be joining us here in the show. We're going to break down everything with him and get into what he sees for these Daytona Speedweeks that is coming up. But let's give a refresher course because I have a feeling he's going to have an opinion on this. We saw several drivers, Steve, at the announcement for the chase that NASCAR and the Cup Series, we're going back to this chase format. So let's just break it down for folks that aren't aware or need a little bit of a refresher course. The top 16 drivers in points will race for a championship over a 10-race chase that will culminate at Homestead Miami Speedway, which is where we'll crown a champion this year. So when we get to the end of the season, it'll be 16 drivers still pushing their way through the final 10 races.
Yeah, basically, it's really pretty simple. If you look at the standings, that's what matters. There's not two buckets anymore. The top 16, as Alex said, move forward. A good footnote is they don't all start equal. First has a little head start on second, a little head start on third. And I do think that matters because while somebody 10th, 12th, 14th can win the championship, KP, I've looked at the numbers, and I think you're going to want to start in the top 5 or top 6. I think the reset really matters. The other footnote that matters is the winner is going to receive more points than he ever has. It's going to be a bigger bonus for winning. And I think that's something that kind of replaced the winning you're in. I like that. Yeah. I'll be honest. I'm waiting to see how it plays out. I think that there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. We talked about the Daytona 500. The good news is I don't think the winner of the 500 is going to get out and talk about the playoffs because he doesn't care. He just won the Great American Race. But I will tell you, the guy that ends up in a crumpled mess at the end of the backstretch knows that he's already a race behind KP of that 26 regular race season, right? He's already leaving there below the points. Although in my day, I always said the points started after Daytona because I would trade that trophy for any other.
Oh, yeah. Everybody would trade that trophy for almost all the other ones. And it's phenomenal to see the guys. But I'll say this. It is phenomenal to see the guys who start with a win at Daytona 500 and end with that championship trophy because that race means so much and carries so much momentum. Listen, we can talk points until the cows come home. Doesn't make any difference. Those guys are going to roll off at Daytona and chase points all year long. And the best team is going to be the champion, no matter what the point system is, no matter whether you talk about the 26 regular season and getting behind or catching up, whatever. It's going to come down to your body of work through the full season. I don't care. Even though we look at those last few races, it's how you carry that momentum, how you perform in those races, how you how you recover from a bad race, because you can recover in the chase. That is the one thing you can recover. And so I'm really looking forward to it. I've said it before. Great drivers and great teams win under any point system. It doesn't make any
That's
difference.
right.
Just throw it at them. It doesn't make any difference. The cream is going to rise to the top. They're going to be there. And as Steve said it before, if you're in the top 4 or 5 in the reset, you stand a better chance because you've got that little bit of a leg up on everybody else.
Can I have a hot take already? I think this is what happens when you work with KP.
Yeah.
All right. So look, it was a good points day. You're going to hear it. Accept it. And here's why. One guy wins. One. Like, so many guys lose that you have to find something to hang your hat on when you've had a good day. Now, look, when the guy that scored the 15th most amount of points says that was a good points day, I'm going to be on TV being like, well, that's BS. He obviously doesn't understand the math because that wasn't a good points day. And yeah. Kyle and I, it's going to be our job to call him out when we see it. But when someone runs third in both stages and runs second in the race and says, I really wanted to win the race, we couldn't do it, but we had a great points day, don't get mad at him. Don't get mad at the truth because that's right, Kyle. Like, we're filling the bucket. Nobody on Friday says, well, I didn't win, but it was a good payday. I mean, yes, like everybody's racing for something, and points that's the currency. The points are the magic right behind the trophy. I don't ever want to hear a guy saying the trophies don't matter because that's BS, but then points are the second most important thing.
Yeah, money is the third. Money is the third.
It really is.
That's way down the list. I'm telling you, that is way down the list on what you race for. And it is the system that we race under. And if that's the system that we race under, if that's the way it's going to be, then you can't get mad when somebody says, had a great points day. They have to be honest about it because, like Steve said, when you look at it and you're 15th or 16th, you didn't have a good points day. There's no way you can equate that to a good points day. You can't spin it. You can't spin it in your own mind. And drivers are crazy about spinning things in their own mind to come up with a little bit of advantage or motivation. But it's going to be right there. And it's going to be fun to watch these guys and see how this new group of drivers who came in under the old format adjust to this. That's what I'm really looking forward to, is to see how these crew chiefs and these drivers adjust to going back in time.
So basically, as my mind is working to process what you two are saying, I'm hearing that this is going to award teams like Hendrick Motorsports, Joe Gibbs Racing. We have Team Penske in there that are dominating these long, bring the best equipment every single week to the racetrack. Steve, am I wrong in saying that?
So you're not wrong, but I'm not willing to put names next to it because they still need to do it. Just because they have doesn't like, look, Chevy has a brand new body, right? If Hendrick Motorsports gets out there and they're behind, like, so should the Gibbses, the Penske's, the Hendricks? Absolutely they should, right? They've been the standard. But I will say KP with the big bonus for wins, like, I still think SVG, if he can win 3 or 4 road courses, if another organization can find some wins. So do I think the biggest have an advantage? Well, yes. Like, there's no such thing as taking away what they've worked for. But I think the reward for wins allows other organizations to still hang your hat on that, right? Yeah. If you can be a little bit aggressive on pit road or have a guy like SVG win some road courses, I think you can still gap yourself.
Yeah, I think when you look at Penske, when you look at Gibbs, when you look at Hendrick, they win 80 or 85% of the races. There's 15% of the races that are left out there, if you look at it, or a percentage of those races. Now, the problem is there's every other team fights for those. And you say SVG, obviously he dominated the road courses last year. Can he do that again? Connor Zilich is stepping in, and there's been a lot of talk there. So that's an internal team thing. So when you look at it, when I look at it that way, I look at it like everybody else. Yes, it is a Penske, it is a Gibbs, it is a Hendrick, because they do it week in and week out every year that we've just come out of. They did it last year. So what makes you think they're not going to do it this year? So I think the advantage does lend itself to them, but you do have to go out there and make it happen. And there are variables that come up, a new Chevy body, a new this, a new that, the 750 horsepower rule, whatever. There's so many variables that come into it. It's who latches onto that early in the year and really gains some ground.
Let's get into that. KP, you led me straight to my next point because that's another bullet point that I have for this upcoming season that will look different for teams. The 750 horsepower at short tracks and the road courses. So 5 tracks will change from the intermediate setup to the short track setup as well, because then we have Bristol, Darlington, Dover, Nashville, and Gateway. And then the other tracks will be Phoenix, Martinsville, North Wilkesboro, Iowa, Richmond, New Hampshire, and then all the road courses.
Yeah.
So, Kyle, when you hear the 750 horsepower, what are you thinking at these racetracks?
Listen, I love it. And I love it at these racetracks that they've added. I love it at a Bristol. I love it at the intermediate style tracks to go back to that, because I think a lot of it's going to depend on the tire that Goodyear brings. And I'm going to put a little bit of that over on that side of the table, because the driver is going to have to control that throttle response. He's going to have to control how he gets into it, what he does, not running the tires off the car. We saw it at Bowman Gray. We saw these cars run out there and get a lead, and then boom, the tires quit working and they drop like a rock. Is that going to happen at the racetracks you just mentioned? And I like that. I like adding, and that being the biggest group of racetracks where we have the 750, where we have the potential of running the rear tires off, or pushing the front tires off, whatever it may be, because I believe that puts a little bit of what we're seeing on the racetrack back in the hands of the drivers. You've got to have a guy who's thinking about lap 50, not lap 5. You got to have a guy who's thinking, I got to get to the end of this run, not burn it up and get around this guy for no reason in the first 15 or 20 laps. So I think it changes the way these drivers are going to have to approach some of these places.
I like that it's simple. If it's under 1.5 miles, it's got a lot more, or it's got more power, and it's got low downforce. And I only say that because, people don't realize, like, hidden gems in all this that people don't realize is Bristol used to be intermediate aero. Why was a half-mile track intermediate aero? Beyond me, right? So my simple point is, forget all the details. As a fan, you have some speedways, Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta. You have all the big tracks. And then you have everything under 1.5 miles. Nashville, Darlington being the odds, right? You kind of forget how big they are, and everything else. And then if you turn both directions, you have 750 and you have low downforce. So I like it simple. The two things, I think that lower downforce at the higher speed tracks, the Nashvilles, the Bristols, the Darlingtons, I don't know who that's going to lean to, but I think that's going to make a big difference on what cars perform well there. And the big one that nobody's talked about yet, and I don't know if this will be a difference at all, but does reliability become a concern again when we increase the horsepower, right? Does that generate more concern through driveline? That's right. Cross your fingers and hope you can make it. Because we saw some engine failures last year. Yeah. So look, I think unknowns are always great. I think by the time we get to the chase, it's not going to be the unknown. We're going to know what they've run all year long. But I do agree with Kyle. There's just more unknowns in the equation. I think that makes for more entertainment.
One of those racetracks that we mentioned that will be changing from the intermediate setup to the short track setup will now also be hosting an all-star race, which is different for this racetrack. We are going to Dover on May 17th for $1 million. Steve, you're making the face.
So
what's
look,
the face for?
I'm not a fan. I'll just be honest. You took a long run racetrack and you put a short run race there. Like Dover is a long run racetrack. The magic of Dover is a 90 lap run and the groove widens out, and who can make it different? And like, there's a million different ways to set cars up to go at Dover, but I'm going to tell you, for 20 laps, man, I think personally, look, I'll be the guy. You want me to be Kyle takes enough shots. I'll be the gremlin here. I'll be the guy. For 20 laps, it is pinned around the bottom as fast as you can hold your breath. And I just don't see that being the magic mix for an all-star race. But hey, I hope they prove me wrong.
Yeah. Listen, I'll play devil's advocate. I really don't care. It's the all-star race. Boys, have at it. 20 laps, they're going to have to go at it. They're going to have to suck it up. They're going to get up on the wheel. You're going to have to make that outside groove work. You're going to have to make something happen. I look at the all-star race exactly the way I look at the Clash. It really doesn't make any difference. It's for the fans. That's what it's there for. If I put it into the context of what a regular Cup race is, I agree with everything Steve just said. Yeah, it's a long-run racetrack. But now these guys got to think different. They got to think short-term racetrack. They are short-run racetrack. They got to look at it totally different. So I am pumped about going to Dover. I'm telling you. And I am pumped that they moved it somewhere different, that they had the gumption and they thought about it and they said, move it. I said the same thing about the Clash when we talked last week. Move that thing around. Give these other racetracks an opportunity to have it and make an event out of it, because that's what the all-star race is. It's an event. It's not necessarily a race. It's an event. And we should look at it that way. And look, it's in the Northeast, man. You're going to draw a lot of people from up around and New York. You're going to draw Pennsylvania. You're going to draw a totally different group of fans than what we've had at Wilkesboro and some of these places in years past. So I think it's going to be good for the sport.
I'll win $1 million after the weekend is over by how many times I have to hear self-cleaning racetrack at Dover. If I have $1 for every time somebody says it, I'm going to have $1 million by the end of the weekend. So I'll be crowned the All-Star winner.
Yes, you will.
So
Yes, you will.
I don't know. I'm with Steve. I kind of feel like Dover just doesn't, to me, scream All-Star race. It doesn't scream short race. Go after, wreck your grandma for $1 million. I don't know, but
Hold on. If you ever watched a race at North Wilkesboro before 1995, it didn't scream All-Star race either.
Fair.
It's not that kind of racetrack. It was
true.
not that kind of racetrack.
Fair.
And that is my whole point. We are picking racetracks we're going to racetracks that don't have the All-Star moniker that you think about that type of event. But we're going there. And we're going there not because that's where we want to go. We're going there because that's where the fans want to go. That's where NASCAR wants to take you to a different place. They want to share the wealth and move it around. Remember, sometimes we're too close. We can't see the forest for the trees. Let's buy a cheap seat up at the top of the bleachers and enjoy what we see at Dover.
All right. On May 16th, we'll see you all at Fire and Ice the night before the All-Star race and there in Dover. So get ready for it at the casino. Now let's talk about July 4th weekend. We are used to spending it the last several years in Chicago, but this time we're still going to be in Chicago. It'll just be a couple miles down the road there at Chicagoland Speedway. The Cup Series will be racing there on July 5th. So, KP, for the Cup Series to head back to Chicagoland, it's been a while, but we'll see the revival of that racetrack this season.
Yeah, back to Joliet and to the prison and Jake and Elwood. Yes, that's where we're going. I'm good with that. I am good. I'm so sorry. I am good with that. Let's go. I think the road course ran its course, and it was a great event. It was a great event. The city of Chicago, what they did, the fans that it drew from all over the country. It drew a lot of people from the four corners to come to Chicago because there was so much more there than just a race. To take it back to Chicagoland, I'm excited about it. I always liked the races at Chicago, man. I love the drive there, but I enjoyed watching the races at Chicago. There was always places to run. You could move around on the racetrack as a driver, and you could make something happen. And I'm excited to see this car back there.
Yeah, I think what that brings is a track that I feel we're missing. So it's 1.5 miles, and if you stand in the garage area, you might think you're at Kansas because it looks very similar. But it does, to Kyle's point, have some options like Kansas. But I will tell you what it takes to be good there is not what you would run at Kansas. And I'm going to use the word content, which basically just means it's rough. It's rough as hell. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, it's bumpy. If Charlotte is a newly paved road, even if the pavement's old, it's pretty smooth, right? And Kansas is, a relatively smooth road that's kind of worn out asphalt. Chicago is a road that they forgot to pave. I mean, it's like they put some gravel and some oil and it's tarred. It might as well be and I say that's awesome because in today's world of pinning these cars to the ground and aero dominance, it's still going to be aero dominant because of the speed, but there's going to be so much bouncing around the racetrack that you're going to have to find something different. So I think it just adds a variability to the race. I love the racetrack, and it's a perfect example. I think if we went there every single year, we wouldn't appreciate it. We had a distance, had to let the heart grow a little fonder. We went up the street. I thought the street course was great. I think 3 was enough. Let's go back there. I'm sure there's other spots on the schedule that we could rotate as well. So I'm ready. I think the fans deserve, back to Kyle's point about the fans, I think it's an underserved area of the country. So let's go there and let the fans come on out. And look, we're not going in December when it's minus 50 something degrees up there in Chicago. I don't know how people even live up there in the winter. We're going to go 4th of July weekend. I like it.
Here's what my request is for Chicagoland, though. I don't care if it rains in downtown Chicago now, as long as it's not raining anywhere near that racetrack when we're out there that weekend. Don't care. You can dump buckets in the downtown streets of Chicago, but you better not rain on that racetrack. Sure. Well, KP already mentioned this, and we are going to talk the San Diego of it all and celebrating 250th year of our great country later on in the show. But let's talk North Wilkesboro, because for the first time since 1996, when Jeff Gordon won there, it will host a Cup Series points race. That's going to kick off on July 19th for the Cup Series. They'll be racing on that Sunday. So, Steve, when you hear North Wilkesboro back on the schedule for a points race, what are your thoughts?
Look, I think it has a huge amount of history. It's close to a lot of the teams. I think it's a great add to the schedule. I thought that I never dreamt what Dale Jr. and Marcus saw. I was one of the few, I guess I'm not a nostalgic guy, but I didn't drive down Highway 40 and then go, man, I wish we were at Wilkesboro. I just never did. But I'm glad people did, because I thought it looked cool and it's great to have back. And I think we underestimate how valuable it is in the racing world. Forget Cup for a minute, right? We see other series there. The Cars Tour runs there. I think it has become kind of a focal point. What I will say is, it doesn't seat a whole lot of people, and sometimes that's a great feeling that, seats are going to be hard to come by. It'll fill up. So I'm going to wait to see. I have no problem with going there. I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be fun. It's a short track. I'm hoping that the horsepower helps the short track racing a little bit. But I will tell you, what I've seen at North Wilkesboro for all-star races was great. So let's give it a run. I have no reason not to give it a run.
Yeah, listen, we're adding a short track. Enough said. That's, I mean, and all the tracks that have been built in recent years since the mid-90s, they're all mile and a half. We've gone to road courses. Now we're going back to a short track after 20 some odd years when you look at it. I predict that the Cup race will be an incredible race compared to what we saw in the All-Star races. And the All-Star races were solid races and were good races. It puts on pretty decent Cup races if you go the full distance. That's the problem. We never got that at Wilkesboro with the All-Star race. You only got spits and spurts of it. That's all you really got out of it. But I think if we go back in time and look at some of the great races that were had there, I think we're going to see a glimpse of that again. So it's a spread out kind of racetrack where it spreads out to only 3 or 4 guys really contending for a win. But what short track is not like that? What short track do we not come down where there's 2 or 3 guys that are the class of the field? And that's what you'll see. But I think it's a good racetrack to race on. There's plenty of room to race. And I am glad to have it back. Enoch Staley and those guys that built that place back in the 40s and 50s and all the years that we drug up there, and Junior Johnson won that place, and that was his playground, man. That brings back a lot of good memories for guys like me. So to see this generation and this car up there is pretty heartwarming.
I feel it's like this magic mix. We're going back to a little bit more standard point system. So if you're going to be hell yeah, well then let's go all the way back to short track and pushing and shoving and beating and banging. And for a fan, because I try to look at it from a fan's perspective, if you're looking at where you're going to spend your entertainment dollars, I think that's a great opportunity. You can still connect it to Charlotte. You could do the Hall of Fame. You could tour some shops. You could go up to Welcome. You're close up to that way. We talk about places you could stay. I think you could go to Hickory. There's some affordable places where you might, so I think it adds, for the NASCAR fan, it adds opportunity. And I'll be honest, as a guy that we've completely, or I, have turned my eyes away from the North Carolina mountains that were just devastated in that hurricane. Like, it's just up the road. So maybe the fan base can come and hang out in the mountain. Like, there's a lot to circle around Wilkesboro that I think maybe we've all looked over. Because it's not always about the racing. To your point about other tracks, like, why do you want to go there for a weekend? I can make an argument.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say, for just an all-star race, and I am excited to see what it'll do for a points race, it was an incredible atmosphere.
Yeah.
I mean, the fans are right there. You can hear them. You can hear fans and verbatim what is coming out of their mouth because they are so close to the racetrack. So it was a really fun environment for me. So I'm excited to see it actually get its glory in the sun. And we hope you guys will be there on July 19th. That'll be the Cup Series racing at North Wilkesboro. But let's get into my favorite week of the whole entire season, because it is right upon us. It is Daytona 500 week. I know this is corny and cliche for me to say that the Daytona 500 is my favorite week of the season, because, like, what low-hanging fruit, but there is no place like Daytona International Speedway. There is no tunnel that feels like it. There is no flyover that feels like the Daytona 500 on Sunday. So on February 15th, when our engines roar back to life and we're crowning a Daytona 500 champion at the end of it all, it's going to be a glorious, glorious weekend. So I want to break down this busy week because Speedweeks has not gotten any slower. We still have a jam-packed schedule. So let's go day by day here. And Steve and Kyle, I kind of want you to break me down and let's give the fans a taste of what they can expect, but also what drivers and teams are hoping that they can accomplish on these days. So the first time we're going to see Cup cars on track. Doesn't that sound good? The first time we're going to see Cup cars on track. Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern. That'll be practice number 1. So, Steve, what are they looking for? What do they want to do in practice right off the jump?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I think you're going to see some mixed opportunities. Some guys are going to run single cars. Some, I think, will line up and probably would go to a little bit. I think Chevy has the most to understand with the new body style. And I think what makes Daytona special is it's different, and there are going to be a ton of cars there. So let's just remind everybody, the 36 charter cars they're in. Jimmy Johnson's in because he has this basically special provisional that a big star can sign up for. And that leaves, 3 slots, 4 slots kind of open for these other cars. And I think that's what I'm going to be looking at Wednesday is actually 2 big questions. Who's fast enough to be on the front row when qualifying happens Wednesday night? Because that will be determined, right, KP? And who from the open cars get locked in? Because Dale Jr. will be back down there with that Traveler's Whiskey car, right? There'll be a lot of stories that start coming on Wednesday. So that's big. Now, KP, I won't lie. Thursday is my favorite. The duels are so much fun. And I think with the lack of practice, the duels are, I think people use them for different reasons, but it's just more racing, more bang for your buck if you're down at Speedweeks.
Yeah, look, and I agree. I think that the thing for me is that, like you said, you're looking at the front row, but the thing for me is those 2 fast open cars. Who are those 2 fast open cars going to be? Because there is so much pressure. I went down there in 97 or 98, not with any way to I had to make it in with a new team that I had started. And I passed a guy on the last lap coming out of turn 4 to make the Daytona 500. And the relief was, I can't even explain it to people how big a moment that is. So to go down there and be able to qualify an open car on that day and make it is going to be a huge relief for these teams. And there's a lot of great teams trying to get that extra car in. You spoke of Dale Jr. and the Travelers car with Justin Allgaier and that storyline last year. We followed it all the way through. It was a great storyline. But I look at this and the duels, and I still call them the 125-mile qualifiers because that's what they were, the 125 miles, and it was just a qualifier. But that was the greatest racing down there, man. And there was always one race. You looked at it and you said, man, I don't want to be in that first race when you'd qualify.
Yeah.
Like, get me in that
Whichever
second race.
one Earnhart was in is the one you didn't want to be in.
Didn't want to be in. I know, man. And you would jockey around and look around, and you were hung, man. And it was just, and you would fret about it.
Yeah.
Remember, we used to qualify the Sunday before, so you had 4 or 5 days to fret about which race you were going to be in. At least these guys, they're going to get it done, then they're going to go race. But that is the best race, and they are critical now to understanding your car, understanding what you have, understanding how it drafts, how it sucks up, how it pushes, how it pulls, whatever it does, because they don't get the practice the way we used to get all those years ago. They only get a little bit of time in their car to figure out and get comfortable and understand what that car is doing. And I think the duels are critical to that.
The nitty-gritty of it all. So practice on Wednesday morning. Qualifying is later Wednesday night at 8:15 Eastern. Thursday night, as we mentioned, are the 2 duels. And those are some of my favorite nights down at Daytona that I have spent covering the sport, just because, like KP said, there's one that's wild. And then the other one is like, okay, we saw what that one did, so we're going to cool our jets here. Friday, there is a happy hour practice session for the Cup Series. Saturday is final practice. That'll be at 3 p.m. Eastern. And then Sunday, it's the Great American Race, the Daytona 500 at 2:30. We're going to just, rev them up. I'm ready. So excited to get going and to get down there at Daytona. A little refresher course. Steve already mentioned this, but the field is set by all 36 chartered entries are guaranteed spots in the Daytona 500. 4 additional spots are filled by those non-charter teams, which we mentioned, hoping to find some speed in practice. Those are the open entries, but Jimmy Johnson is utilizing that open exemption provisional in the number 84. So he is already assigned a starting position, and he will race it out and see where his speed ends up for the Daytona 500. But a lot at stake on Wednesday, a lot at stake on Thursday. My first thing for the duels, though, KP, how much are you trying to not tear up your race car? Like,
listen, you do that every lap you go out. How many cars
well,
did we used to see cars torn up in practice all the time? I mean, it was like you get the noses torn off, you get the sides torn off. I mean, but at some point in time, that's how you learn. That's how you learn. You got to stuff it up in there and make something happen. You got to push somebody through. You got to get 3 wide. You got to get 4 wide. If you're not in that position, I used to have a crazy basketball coach. And I never understood it until I started racing, to be honest with you. And he said, you got to practice how you play. If you don't practice how you play, there's no magic switch. You can't just switch it in the car and say, yeah, this is what I'm going to do now. You got to understand that. And I think drivers put themselves in bad situations sometimes in traffic and practice, and bad things happen sometimes in practice. But when you look at it, they were doing it most of the time for a reason, to learn, to try to get better, to do something better, to win the Daytona 500, because that's what you're down there for. So I think the crews hold their breath every time they go out. Drivers, not as much, but I think the crews hold their breath to say, just bring it back in one piece so we don't have to be here at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. We can be over at the ocean deck having a good time.
Better to wreck on Thursday than Sunday. So if you're going to learn
that's
something,
true.
you better get it done
That
early
is
in the week.
true. That is true. Let's talk about what's at stake. We'd be remiss to not mention the storyline of William Byron. He's won the last 2 Daytona 500s back to back, the 5th driver to ever win consecutive 500s. It is such a difficult feat to win 1, much less 2, but to get him back to back, he could become the first driver to win 3 straight Daytona 500s. Steve, could he get it done this season?
Absolutely. Look, I think that he's better every year. I think he's youthful.
Yeah, he is.
His experience makes him smarter. Both of them were done in a little bit different, fashion. So I think for William Byron, it's all about managing 400. Like, his goal needs to be in the picture with 50 miles to go. And if he does that, anything can happen. But can he do it? Absolutely. I don't see why not.
Yeah,
Kyle, what have you seen? What have you seen from William? Because 5 wins, 40 drafting track starts. I mean, it's just improved the more and more this kid is getting in the race car and seeing the experience.
So what William has done is to me, when I look at him, I think when you come into these drafting tracks, you come in, and a lot of guys, especially at the Cup level, because when you step it up from the Xfinity or trucks to the Cup level, it's a different game. It's a totally different game. So to run door to door, nose to tail with a Kyle Busch or a Denny Hamlin, guys who understand this and know how to get it done, a Joey Logano who can take control of the race, you learn something every time you come in. And most people come in first grade. William Byron came in already in 7th or 8th grade. He had studied the tapes. He understood it. He understood it when he came to the game. And his education and his intelligence, let me put it this way, has just gotten better and better. So when I look at it, he shows up every race that we run at the Speedway, Talladega, Daytona, Atlanta, Jamaica. He's smarter again. He's smarter again. He's smarter again. He's never leveled off. He continues. So when you look at the raw talent of driving a race car and you put that with the intelligence that he has, he puts himself in positions to take advantage of other people's mistakes, and at the same time put himself in position to make his own moves. And that's important, because you can't depend on somebody else doing everything. You've got to be in a position to make a move offensively for yourself too. And William is that total package when it comes to Speedway racing.
A lot of talented drivers too will be going after that first win. We have just a very young field this season in the 2026 season. So 9 drivers got their first Cup win in the Daytona 500. Most recently, Austin Cindric in 2022. But 8 of the last 11 Daytona 500s were won by drivers getting their first ever 500 win. So Steve, when you hear these stats though, is it experience? Is it luck? Is it skill? How do you win a Daytona 500? Don't wreck? Is that the key to it all?
Well, that's the first thing you have to do. But I also think that these young drivers are having the best opportunities than they did 20 years ago. Rookies are now sitting in equipment. Austin Cindric was driving for Team Penske, right? Like William Byron, when he won his first, it was for Hendrick Motorsports. Connor Zilich is going to be sitting in a track house car. So, they're not going in these one-off entries. I think that's what helps dramatically. And just laps. I think Kyle just mentioned it with William Byron. I just think that they're studying while they don't get as much track time, I guarantee they study more tape than anyone did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And I think that's it. They put themselves in position. So I think that's what we should all celebrate is while there are favorites, I'm not going to say they're all equal. I could probably get to 25 names that could definitely win the race, right? Maybe 27, right? So that's an impressive stat. I'm not sure we've had that for every single year down there, but that's what I like about what the starting grid we currently have is we're just going to have a lot of names we're going to have to follow.
Yeah, and I'm going to add on, piggyback onto that is in the heyday, and people talk about the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. There were 6 or 7 teams that could win the race.
Yeah,
6 or 7. That's it. When you unloaded, you knew you were racing for 7th or 8th because you were at a B level car. And Steve said it great. These young drivers come in a car already capable of winning the Daytona 500, already with a team that has won the Daytona 500, already in a position to capitalize on that. And they've been able to capitalize on it in recent years. So it's a lot different model today than it was if we go back to the 70s, 80s, or 90s, or even early 2000s.
All right, KP, don't go anywhere. We have some season questions that we want to close the show up with, but we are now going to be joined by the 2-time champ, never won a Daytona 500 before. Kyle Larson is joining the show. Well, we are now joined by not a one-time champ. This is the perk of coming off of a championship winning year when you win your second championship. You're a multi-time champion in the NASCAR Cup Series. The number 5 from Hendrick Motorsports, Kyle Larson. First and foremost, welcome back to the season, KL. Here we go again. You ready for it?
Yeah, I'm ready. Unlike everybody else, I feel like it's been a long off season. So, yeah, I'm definitely ready to get back racing, ready to be, working weekly with the team and hopefully doing some good things this year.
Kyle, I try to imagine what it would be like in today's NASCAR to try to go to Daytona, the Daytona 500, biggest race of the year, with just so little seat time. We used to have test days, practice days. I know we went, to the Clash, but that track is very unique. It doesn't really connect to anything other than, to your point, initiating some conversation. So just how much do you value the seat time, like the duels and throughout the week, to really knock the rust off for the 500?
Daytona is not the most challenging racetrack to get around. But I would say it's like the procedure stuff, which, restarts, pit stops, pit road, that sort of thing, hitting your shift marks. That would be nice to get a rep at before, which is, you do get kind of that rep in the duel. But like for me last year, I sped in the duel, leaving my pit stall just because I was rusty. I made a mistake. So it's good to get back behind the wheel. As a selfish driver, I don't really want practice or testing in the off season just because I want days at home. But no, it just kind of is what it is. I think.
Before we move on to this season as a whole, obviously we kick off with the biggest race, the one that everybody wants on their resume, but it's been a difficult journey, I feel like, for you to kind of figure out Daytona. You have that best finish of 7th, which hasn't come since 2019, but there hasn't been a defending champion win since Dale Jarrett did it in 2000. How do you even navigate Daytona? I mean, I feel like it doesn't even matter if you're a champion, how good you are. It all comes down to surviving and advancing at that place. So what's the mindset when you go into that crazy track?
I think for me, the mindset is the same as any, my mindset in any super speedway. It's just about how to execute as a team, and not just a specific team, but like as an organization, how you execute through it. So fuel mileage, fuel savings, executing green flag stops, positioning yourself for after the cycle, and then making good decisions then. So I feel like we understand the recipe that it takes to run well at super speedways. I think we have done a good job over the last 3 to 4 years at them. I think last year we finally got rewarded for being up front. So it was good to see the checkered flag, I think, at every super speedway last year, which was something very unique for me. So hopefully this year it becomes even better and we can get that first win on a super speedway, but especially starting off at the Daytona 500 would love that. So it's great to start with our biggest race of the year and would be amazing to cap off last year and turn it into a win at the 500 would be awesome.
So as we widen our view out, look, it's a long year, right? The champion will be in November, and I know there's a lot of conversation about the chase, and we're going to get into that. But before we talk about points and the championship and all of those things that happen in November, I look at the season and I have to like earmark some things to kind of like leapfrog my way through the year to change it up a little bit. We have some interesting new events. We have some things that have moved. I think for me, probably the West Coast is the one I have circled, right? We're going to go San Diego back to Sonoma. So 2 road courses staying on the West Coast. But for you, your family, whatever it is, like what do you have circled this year that you're really looking forward to on the schedule?
You know, I'm from California, but like I'm really excited about those 2 weeks because I'm going to do stuff that I've not really ever done as a Californian. You know, I haven't been to San Diego other than to go there for a couple hours to help announce the event last year. And then, you know, I've never really driven along the coast so I'm going to spend, I haven't planned it yet, but I want to, you know, go to San Diego a few days early, kind of experience that region, and then, work our way north along the coast to Sonoma. And then everybody loves Napa, so get to do your vacationing there and then also race. So, I'm super excited about that. Excited to get to Chicagoland. Excited about the chase, the chase, it's called. So, it's I think a lot of cool, exciting things this year, and stuff that we can all look forward to as a group.
Well, you mentioned the chase, and this kind of brings me to my next question. When you heard the format announced, because a lot of us, we had heard different rumors, we had no idea what exactly we were getting. So when you heard that it was going to be that push to Homestead Miami Speedway, 16 drivers locked in, what were your initial thoughts when you heard what you were going to be doing this upcoming season?
Yeah, I mean, a lot like you guys, I had heard rumblings of different things that could potentially happen. And, once they landed on that, I was happy for it. I feel like it's a good sort of balance between what we had and what as fans and competitors and a series are looking for going forward. So, and then 2, I think, being with a top team like Hendrick Motorsports, I think this format would lend itself a little bit better to a team like us or Penske or Gibbs, the teams that are consistently up front. But I mean, I feel like still the same teams that were contending in the playoff format are going to be the same teams contending in this chase. So, you still got to go out there and execute. I think wins are really important still. So hopefully we can have the consistency and get some wins along the way, and try to execute our way through to a championship in another format. I think would say a lot about our team.
Yeah, I agree. I think the batting average comes into play, right? And the equipment you sit in makes a difference, because you're going to have to, you don't have to be great everywhere, but I don't think you can be bad anywhere. So the mistakes will really pile up if they happen, mechanical or even from the team. How much do you look into it? Like I've known you a long time, right? You just kind of get in and go. It appears from the outside as either a media member or a fan. You're just really kind of like helmet on, pedal down. Do you look into the different nuances of it, or you just hand that off to Cliff and just show up each week prepared, and whatever he's asked you to look into, you study, and other than that, you're ready to go?
I don't think either of us have. I mean, maybe I haven't really talked to him about the format. Yeah. I think we all understand that like a Hendrick Motorsports would be, better for this format. But like as far as what it takes to get to navigate through either format, I'm curious what you think. I don't think it changes. The playoff format rewarded consistency just as much or more than what this is. Plus, winning is important and all that. So I don't really think it changes much. I mean, you want to finish every race every weekend. You want to maximize stage points every weekend. You want to get wins when you can. So to me, nothing changes. I think just you're not I don't want to say it's easier. I don't think that's the right word to use for this format, but like there's a lot that can happen to even get to the Final Four before. So I just think there's less variables that can take you out of a championship than maybe what the playoffs were.
But I don't think it's going to be more rewarding. I think that's unfair to the old format. I think that was super rewarding, but I do think lacking performance or not making it will be more painful. Because I think it will really come down. Like, you can't say, it was one thing or one. Like, I really think you have to look at, man, this was a pretty big body of work that either didn't make the playoffs or didn't advance. So I agree with you. I think it's going to be fun to watch, because I think it's going to kind of ebb and flow through the year as we go through the season.
Yep. No, I agree. I agree with all that.
All right, KL, I know you've probably gotten this question a million times, but I want you to give us right now what you're thinking as we're all getting ready to head down to Daytona. Expectations for this year, coming off of a championship. I know the emotions have finally set in, and you're going to have that 2-time on a fire suit, which is just completely different than a 1-time champion in this series. So what are you hoping you accomplish in 2026?
Yeah, I mean, for me, honestly, I don't really think about the result of last year at all at this point. I think you quickly, once you get through the interviews and banquet and all that, you spend like a week kind of enjoying it. But as soon as that week's done, for me anyways, you just kind of move on and get excited and get preparing for the following year. So yeah, for this season, I mean, yeah, I'm hopeful to do good. I'm excited about the new body that we have on our car. Curious, how it's going to play out for the super speedways, especially, but even the intermediate style tracks, how that's going to benefit us, or if there's other challenges that we're going to have to encounter and develop upon and get better at. And then, yeah, I mean, just always continuing to try to evolve as a driver and teammate, and then do a good job on the weekends. So yeah, with all that, I mean, hopefully you're doing good and you're positioning yourself to contend for another championship, I think, which is ultimately everybody's goal. So yeah, we'll see. Just excited to get going. And yeah, like I said, it feels like it's been a long time for me since we've been competing. So yeah, ready to just get going and get back into routinely things every week.
He never climbs out of a race car anyways, Steve, so I'm not surprised.
No, that's why the time off. He hates the time off. He wishes he raced every day. So.
Chili Bowl, all the things in the off season. All right, Kyle, well, we appreciate you joining us. We'll see you down in Daytona, bud.
Yep. See you guys. Thank you.
Hendrick Motorsports has accomplished several feats at the Daytona 500, but qualifying day is typically known as Hendrick Motorsports Day because they just lock up the front row every single year. Kyle Petty has joined us now again, but I want to get into some season questions because there are a lot of storylines heading into this season. And the first one being RFK wins the Clash. Ryan Preece, all the emotion up there in the snowy land of Winston-Salem at Bowman Gray. But this perception is that this team can win. He said so himself. He wants to make sure that this organization is into the playoffs and that he is propelling RFK into a winning season for not just himself, but for several cars. But Brad Keselowski, who is an owner driver at that team, is coming off of an off-season injury. We've seen the videos. He had surgery. KP, I'm going to start with you on this one. Can he get back to victory lane? Is Keselowski going to pull into victory lane this season? Over 40, has an injury. What do you see?
So I said it earlier in the show here. And I picked random numbers, but I said 85% of the races will be won by Penske and Gibbs and Hendrick.
Yeah.
So that leaves RFK and Brad K fighting 20 other drivers and 6 or 7 other teams for that one lone victory out of that added 10 or 15%. And I think it's a tough road. I just think it's a tough road. I think at coming off of an injury, I came off of an injury in early 90s. I was in my early 30s. And it took a while to get back from a broken leg and to get back where you needed to be. It's a totally different game now. And Brad is a totally different driver than I was. He's won championships. He's won races. He's done a lot of things. But I just think it's tough for that team, even coming off of a win at Bowman Gray, to it's momentum. I will give them that. And it is something to hang your hat on. I will give them that. But to carry that into the rest of the year against these other guys, I think it's just going to be tough for Brad to find his way back to victory lane. Even though he had some great races last year, I think it's going to be tough.
Steve?
I think it's going to be tough, and I will say I think it's going to be tough because I think Chris Buescher's sitting in the same equipment, and I think Chris Buescher at his age has a little bit more firepower behind the wheel than Brad Keselowski does. So I think if it comes down to Look, Brout's very talented and very calculated. And I'm not saying he can't win a race, but if I had to list the 15 drivers I think are going to win, I think I don't have Brout on that list. I think, can he do it? Yeah, sure, but he's not going to be at a road course. So let's take 5 or 6 of those off. Maybe he's above average at the speedways. So we'll put that on the list. He could easily prove us all wrong, very, very quickly, but he has to beat the guys he employs. And I think Chris Buescher is really, really good. So like if you go back to the Richmond race that Chris Buescher and him dueled, Chris Buescher outdueled him. So right? Like I think if you drive for any organization, you have to look around who's in your same equipment, and you got to have to make sure you outrun them first. Forget the other big names.
I will give you this. Steve said that if you had to list the top 10 or 15, I'll give him the 16th spot as a Cinderella story. I'll give him that one.
I do think it would be a popular one. I know that sounds crazy, but it would be a little bit like the Truex win at Pocono, or I really think if Brad won one, you don't want to label it as his last, right? But he's getting to the point in his career where every win could possibly be his last. And if he and with the dry spell, I think everybody now believes it could be. So I do think it would be a popular win. I'd be the first down there to congratulate. Like he's done a lot, he's earned a lot, he earns the respect of his peers. So it'd be a popular win, but I don't get paid for popularity. We get paid for real numbers, and it would be a taller task.
Yeah.
Another driver who is coming off of an off-season injury, Denny Hamlin, over 40, had such I don't even know how to comprehend where his mind is at after the offseason that he had. And we've all been thinking about Denny and the Hamlin family and what's been going on over there with his family. And we're wishing Mary Lou that she's still having that continued recovery and success in her recovery that she is having. But we saw Denny obviously talking at the Clash. He mentioned the re-injury of the shoulder that he had as he was going through the debris. So another driver that's not at 100%. He's over 40 as well. So Steve, I mean, for Denny Hamlin, I know he's hoping to make it back to the point that he was at last season, contending for a championship. But coming off of this injury and the offseason that he had, where do you see his mindset at?
Well, so I think Denny Hamlin's 2025 was we might forget it 5 years or 10 years from now, but it's still close enough for me that it was one of the most impressive drives for an older driver, or really any age driver. And I think it comes down to just being as locked in as I remember seeing any driver. So for me, when I look at DH specifically, I don't question his skill set. His age doesn't bother me yet because I didn't see anything that bothered me last year. Unfortunately, I do think it flips off like a switch, and I'm not sure when that switch is for him. I really believe that it's just going to be about, can he continue to bring the focus and the emotion required to perform at the level that he performs. And I think everybody would understand if it was a slow start to the year. I would think it would understand that we just heard Kyle Larson say that the offseason's been too long. Well, I'm not sure Denny Hamlin's even had an emotional offseason, right? So much has gone on personally for the man. But now the counter is, and I've seen this out of athletes, does he strap in and take a breath and say, man, I'm in my happy place. I'm back where I need to be. Is he able to take 3.5 hours and be so happy that all he has to do is drive a race car, or mentally charged to drive a race car? So I think Denny wins again for sure. I think he wins multiple times. Does he match last year? I think that's a tall task for any driver. That was an amazing driver. But I think, how about this? Denny Hamlin is going to be somebody that if you're going to win the championship, you're going to have to outrun Denny Hamlin at some point throughout the year. Kyle, I just don't, it's a long year, and I think it ebbs and flows. And I think for Denny, that's going to be the key, is how he can manage, not having a whole lot of emotional time off.
Yeah. I listen, to match what he did last year would be unthinkable because that year was where his head was, what he went through, everything that went on last year on the racetrack. He was at the top of his game, at the very top. And that's what concerns me coming into this year. He's not 100% physical. He said it. There's no way, and unless he can just pull that brain out and set it somewhere, that he can be at the top of his game emotionally. He has taken massive blows over the winter. From the time we left Phoenix, that was an emotional blow. That was an emotional blow to not win that championship for him. And then everything that happened with his parents, everything that's gone on, it is tough to recover from that in a short period of time. I'm not a therapist. Okay. But it's going to be tough to recover from that in a short period of time. And I do think you do find that happy place in a race car. And I will say this, when Adam's accident happened, where I felt closer to him was being inside that race car, hanging onto that steering wheel, sitting in that seat. And I know Denny, I would like to think that that's where Denny will feel close to his dad, sitting in that race car, hanging onto that seat, doing the job that he and his dad started all those years ago. So you can't see inside Denny's heart. Nobody can see inside. And this is where Denny, the human being, this is where Denny, the professional athlete, this is where Denny, the champion that he is, even though he doesn't have a championship trophy, he is a champion in this sport. This is where Denny will have to dig deep and rise above a lot of that. And we're going to see who Denny Hamlin is this year. We can talk about all his past and everything that he's ever done, but we're going to see a glimpse into who Denny Hamlin is as a human being, as a person. We know what he can do on a racetrack. And I agree. I think he's going to go out, he's going to win races, and he'll contend. Will he be there in the end? That's going to be yet to be seen. But I think he will be one of the contenders.
I will say the disappointment from last year at Phoenix, I wouldn't go to that well right away if I was his crew chief. But if we were fortunate enough to when it resets in the playoffs, that would be the conversation, right? We have 70 days to change your display in the Hall of Fame. That would be my sales pitch to Denny Hamlin.
Wow.
Because he's going in the Hall of Fame. There's zero doubt he's going in the Hall of Fame. So my sales pitch to Denny Hamlin, the day after we left the regular season, is I would say we have 70 days to change your display. Right? If you want to put that trophy in your display when it gets presented at the Hall of Fame, I need 70 days. I need 10 weeks. That you can't own 2311. You can't do this. You can't do that. And I believe Denny Hamlin, from watching him over the years, he can find this different level. That would be my sales pitch, KP. Give me 70 days, buddy.
Yep. Yeah, listen, when we get there and Denny's in there and in 70 days, you and I are going to partnership on the T-shirt because we're going to sell that. Every Denny Hamlin fan is going to have that. You got 70 days.
70 days.
It is the first bullet point on a resume when a driver goes into the Hall of Fame is the championships that you have won. But no doubt that we've seen some special emotional moments in this sport, and it lends itself to when you have a little bit of angel dust sprinkled on a race car, some special things can happen. So excited to see what Denny can have come his way and accomplish this season, especially given the talent that we saw and the drive and the motivation we saw from last season. So let's turn the page a little bit. And the reason that I haven't talked about San Diego is I'm going to kick this one off because my next question here is, what race are you most looking forward to besides the Daytona 500 and why? So I mentioned my favorite week of every single season is the Daytona 500. That might be replaced after we go to Coronado and race in the middle of a Navy base in San Diego, which is one of my favorite cities on the planet. It's beautiful. The weather is just ideal. And we get to celebrate 250 years of this great country. When we made the announcement, there were fighter jets flying over as we're announcing NASCAR is racing on a naval base. And it was one of the coolest moments, not only in my career that I've had in my life. It was like I was on the set of Top Gun, but real life. I cannot wait to get down there on Father's Day weekend for San Diego. So now I'm going to turn the page to the fellas because Steve and Kyle. Steve, I'm going to start with you. What race are you looking forward to the most this season?
Well, I think San Diego is the easy pick for everyone, but I will tell you there's one that may not be on everyone's, but it's become one of my favorite races of the year, and I'm going to tell you it's the Southern 500 on Labor Day weekend. And I love that we're going back to the chase. I love that. I think the points format makes that race even more important. It's the first one of the 10. There's no more mulligans. There's no more resets. We're going with more horsepower and less downforce. So, the fire-breathing dragons on the toughest track to drive are going to be more out of control than ever. So for me, I know it's a long ways off, and I agree San Diego for all those reasons, but I go back to circling that one. I think it's the toughest test. I think it's been the toughest test since the beginning of NASCAR time. And I think the points, the rules, the motors, points, that it's only going to be more magical than ever. So I'm going to lean into an old one. Been around forever. I love the Southern 500.
All right, KP, continue the Americana train. I have a San Diego on a naval base. We have Labor Day weekend in the Southern 500. Good luck, bud.
Yeah, no. So I will kind of go now. Listen, San Diego is going to be Top Gun meets Days of Thunder. This got Tom Cruise written all over it. He should be the Grand Marshal there. Okay, so let's just go ahead and get that done. So, but I will say for me, it's the Coca-Cola 600. You talk about a tough race. It's 600 miles. No other racing series that's not an endurance championship or an endurance race runs 600 miles. We are the only ones. And it is fascinating to me every time you roll into Charlotte. And you see the display. You see what Coca-Cola does. It's Memorial Day. Memorial Day. You see all this stuff. It is such a great, great event that for me, it is one of the keystones. It's obviously a crown jewel, but it is one of the cornerstones of what makes a cup year. And when you look at the guys who have won this race, who have gutted it out and won this race, they are the who's who. They are the guys that win at Darlington. They are the guys that win at Daytona. They are the guys that are in the Hall of Fame at some point in time. So the Coke 600 for me.
If you want to have a good time and celebrate this country, hang out with the three of us. I mean, what more could you ask for? 3 weekends, you're welcome, America. We're excited to get rolling. Let's talk about a breakout season, though, that a driver may have this year, because 2026, I mean, there are a lot of drivers I'm circling. They're looking not only for a great season and for a breakout season, but for win number 1. I mean, you look at Connor Zilich. Noah Gragson still going after that first win. Ryan Preece still technically going after that first points win. John Hunter Nemechek, Ty Gibbs, Carson Hocevar. So, KP, is there going to be a breakout driver that we have this season?
Look, I'm going with Carson Hocevar. I just think since if we go back, what is it? Last year before, when everybody started whining about him, what's he doing up here running with us? What's he doing up here door to door with us? What's he doing up here?
Yeah.
And when you start whining about somebody, when the veterans start complaining about a new guy, that guy's knocking on them. That guy's in their head somewhere. And Carson he started at Bowman Gray in their head. So let's look at it that way. Yes, he's with Spire. Yes, he's just signed a long-term deal. Is that a team that can win week in and week out? No, but Carson Hocevar can be that fly in the ointment. And we've seen him challenge the 4th place, the 5th place. He's gotten up, he's led races. So I think that's a team. And with him as a driver, I think he's going to have that type of year this year where he gets some of that stuff under control that he's been criticized for in the past. And he has that solid year. He has that consistent year that gets him into the chase and moves him forward in a lot of people's minds.
So, I still have the winners winning. I'll be the naysayer. I don't see a breakout driver. I don't see. We might get one guy to win his first race. I think that the winners win, and I think they continue to win. We haven't seen a lot of driver movement, so a lot of guys are back with their same teams, back with their same comfort. I have some guys that are already considered winners that I think the format and stuff will come to them. So I do have some people that I think are going to have better years, but I'm sure I'll be glass half empty. I don't see a breakout. I think Zilich is as good as impressed. I think people are going to underestimate how tough Sundays are. I think he's going to be humbled, and he's going to have an amazing career. He might not even be humbled because he probably already knows it. So what I should say is maybe some Zilich fans might be humbled because I think, I think Connor knows what he's up against. But Sundays are hard, really, really, really hard. So no, I think the winners continue to win.
Yeah.
And listen,
I'm not going to dispute that part. When I'm not sure that Hocevar is going to win a race. I just think he's going to up his level of play and aggravate people.
Yeah. One of the drivers that I have circled for this year that I'm interested to see if he crosses off the box of pulling into victory lane, and we've mentioned these top organizations. Ty Gibbs.
Yeah.
I feel like we have seen this driver be so close to victory lane. He has found speed in qualifying. He's unloaded off of the truck fast. He's been so close there at the end of the races, but can't get the monkey off of his back to get into victory lane. So he's one that I have circled. I don't know if he has a breakout season. I don't know if this is a multi.
I'll go as far as to say it's a must win. I don't think you're crazy. I think he must win. I think if he does not win this year, then the wrong questions are going to be asked about the young man driving that car. Like, it's a must win year for Ty Gibbs.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. And you mentioned Carson or Connor Zilich a minute ago. And I'm going to bring him up in this context is I think it's our expectations a lot of times. We begin to believe the hype. And I'm going to go down this road. Christopher Bell won like 7 or 8 races his last year in Xfinity. And he came over, and in his second race, he won a Cup race. And you're thinking, oh, this is a real deal, man. This is a real deal. Then he went 90 races more before he won his second race. And it was another year before he was considered a consistent winner in the sport. That's 90-some races. Ty Gibbs has gone 120, and he won 7 or 8 races his last year in Xfinity. He dominated. He's gone 120-some races. Connor Zilich won 10 races and was right there knocking on the door. Is it going to be 100 races for Connor Zilich?
Yeah.
It's not out of the question that it can be. It's not out of the question. So I think sometimes our expectations that we put on these guys coming out of that, and we start looking at it and we say, oh, they got to do this. There are rare individuals like Jeff Gordon, like Tony Stewart. And listen, that's a totally different level.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That jump in a Cup car and just win races right off the bat. Those guys are phenomenal. And we can look at these guys and we can call them phenoms, and we think this and we hope this, but it's kind of like you don't know until they get here. And Steve says it week in and week out, okay? There's a huge step from Xfinity to Cup, a huge step. You don't see it from the grandstands. You don't see what's going on out there. But the Cup level is the Cup level for a reason. When you get up and go door to door with those guys, you're there for a reason, and you've got to learn that when you get there. So I don't have high expectations for Connor Zilich. I don't have high expectations for a lot of these guys. I've seen Hocevar and those guys inch their way forward.
Yeah,
we've seen other guys inch their way, but this is a game of inches at this point in time. It's not a game of home runs or grand slams. They need to come in and get base hits.
Yeah, I actually don't need to see a lot out of Connor Zilich. Yeah. I think he's going to be fine.
Right. That's right.
So this is what I would encourage everyone listening when you say so-and-so is going to win. So I want you to literally write down all the drivers he has to beat. Just go ahead and do it, because when I took over crew chiefing for Dale Earnhardt Jr., we knew we wanted to go back to victory lane. But Dale and I had this conversation. I'm like, okay, just so you know, when we win, we're going to have to beat. Let's start just internal. Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, Mark Martin, like move along. Like this is back in the Dale Jr. days. So if you're Connor Zilich, right? Like, all right, you got to, and you can go organization by organization. That's what makes Cup racing so much fun to watch.
And I will say, Connor has had a lot of success on these road courses in the Xfinity Series, and we've seen him try to contend. He has to beat his teammate, who is one of the best on road courses that we have ever seen, that has the same equipment, the same information in a notebook, the same organization. They're powering those two cars that are so yeah, Connor, I'm not going to be unimpressed if the kid doesn't win a race this season, but I am.
The lessons he's going to be learning, we won't even see, right? Because Kyle is he kind of figured it out in the, like he'll be developing a relationship with all these guys he drives again. Like there's a lot going on. He's going to be around a long time. So
that's right.
Yes,
he's going to get his share of wins.
All right. Last but not least, as we mentioned, the chase. Steve, we were there the day it was announced. We made the announcement on Inside the Race. What driver does the point system benefit the most? We talked a little bit about the organizations that we think it's going to benefit, but is there one driver that you can reward consistency seeing what they've done the last couple seasons?
Chase Elliott.
Yes.
Stole my answer.
I think Chase Elliott is a driver who races a little like his personality. He's very respectful. He's level-headed. He makes a lot of good decisions. I think he has struggled to go what I'm going to call this as a compliment, even though it may not sound it, but what drivers have been asked to do almost has like jumped off the page. It's like an abnormal, control of a race car to do these crazy things. And I think he just operates at 99.9%, and just chugs along. So I actually have Chase Elliott, Mr. Consistent last year. Allen's so smart on top of the pit box. So I think he would be the one I'd have circled that I think the format suits the best.
KP.
Yeah, listen, I think he stole all of our answers. That's it. He is the guy that's just there. I would probably throw a Ryan Blaney into that same category. He makes, so when he runs all day, he can make a good day out of a so-so day. They just seem to find their way to the top 10, to the top 5 sometimes. And
even
then
with the 900 DNFs he had last season?
Yeah, no, listen, that's not him. I'm not putting those DNFs on him. I am not. I'm just not. The things that happened to him last year, it's like I said with 750, I hope we see some failures on some cars. Yes, I do. I hope we see some engine failures. But what happened to Blaney last year? You can't put that on him. But I'm going to use that as an example. It was so bad last year; it's got to get better this year. Okay, so he's going to come in this year, and they just seem to be able to. He's not in a league with Chase Elliott when it comes to Mr. Consistency, but I think he's pretty good.
Look, I could tell you, I could flip it. I think Kyle Larson, who we just talked to, is amazing, but they're going to be a little less volatile is the word I would use, right?
Yes.
And I would say also less volatile. I would put Joey Logano in that group, right? When they're great, they're great. When they're not, they're not. I don't think Kyle Larson has as much speed discrepancy as Joey Logano, but the finish is still just, whether it's wrecks or other things. Now, look, I think that's all manageable and they'll figure it out as the season goes, but those are the two that I think just need less noise. Can we call it noise? And they need less noise over the season.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I would agree with the 9. I think, and I said it last year when Steve and I were talking, I would never forget the conversation at Watkins Glen, because it is, I equate Chase Elliott to it's a bonfire. You never see this huge, it's lighting the sky on fire. There's fireworks coming out of it. It's burning blue because it's so bright. There's never these, or at least there weren't last season for me. There were never these championship moments that I thought would propel him to a championship in the old format. However, the fire never went out. It was a constant burn all season long. And for me, with this now Chase format and building those points and the seeding that's going to come when we reset for the playoff, I mean, I think when you have a constant lit bonfire and you are constantly working towards something, I agree with the 9. I think it'll benefit Chase Elliott for me. All right. Well, 2026, the season is upon us. I keep saying this. Now I'm just ready to get the cars on track and to see some drafting down there on the high banks of Daytona. So the fun thing for us this year, though, is that we do have, this is brand new for Inside the Race, we have a 36 for 36 fantasy league.
Oh, yeah. I've been studying.
Oh, my
You get
gosh.
to compete with me, Kyle Petty, Steve Letarte. We're going to have some other friends join. When I tell you that Steve Letarte is the most competitive fantasy, it doesn't matter what sport. It could be cricket. If he is in a fantasy league, he is super competitive. So
he's in a water
top
polo
3,
fantasy league.
Exactly. I mean, like, we're going flag football over here, but top 3 finishers will earn a prize this season. I don't know what the prize is. They won't tell me what the prizes are, but join our fantasy league, and please, for the love of God, beat Steve Letarte in fantasy.
I'm going to take that as a compliment.
Yes, you should. You should.
We also are all heading down to Daytona. We're going to be at the Daytona 500, and me and KP are going to have a lot of fun with you guys because we're going to be in Victory Lane live post-race right here on NASCAR's YouTube page. Steve, I'm hoping you will join us remotely. I know that Daytona gets busy for you, but KP, I'm excited to have you down there in Victory Lane. We're going to crown a Daytona 500 champion.
Listen, I never went to Victory Lane at Daytona, so I'm excited to be there. I got to tell you that. So no, I am looking forward to this year on Inside the Race. Working with you guys and being a part of this, I learned something every time I come in here. We need to take this show, though. I was just thinking we need to take this show at the end of the year and play it and let us critique what our comments were on how far off we were or how correct we were. Because I'm going to say we're going to be 99.9% correct.
Ooh, I'm not going that far.
You were going to say wrong. Love that. Okay, so Steve, they did tell me, John, our producer, is telling me what we're winning. Okay, so first place, you get a $500 gift card to the NASCAR Fanatic store. Second place is a $300 gift card to the Fanatic store, and third place is a $200 gift card. So,
and I like this. We're giving stuff away
for our winners here.
All right,
yeah.
All right.
We love free stuff.
Well, listen, y'all have fun in Daytona. I'm going. I won't stay for the race. I'll have to watch from here because I'm going in the lab on Monday to break down everything that happened. I wish I was going to be down there and see it in person with you guys. It's going to be great. And then post-race show every single week. They can come on, tell us what they think.
Post-race show, we have Letarte's Lab that will be coming out weekly. He'll break down everything with a few of his friends there in the studio. But follow us all on social. If you disagree with anything in any show, don't tweet Kyle and I. Tweet Steve, because that's the best way to tell us that we're wrong.
Bring it.
And make sure and keep up with everything NASCAR Inside the Race on our YouTube page. We'll see you down in Daytona. We're excited to gear up and get this season going. Happy 2026. Let's hear the engines roar, and we'll see you every week on Inside the Race.